welcome back to More Must Be Better. I'm Meg, and tonight actually, I'm making meatloaf for supper. I wanted to share this recipe because it's my recipe. I have never really followed a recipe. I've been making this since I was a kid. It's one of the first things I learned how to make. And I did a little bit of research, and I can't find a recipe that is similar enough to the way I make it. To where I feel like I can just say this is just my recipe. It's Meg's recipe. So we've got a glass of wine because it's happy hour, and we're gonna make meatloaf. Let's get started. I have a recipe when I make this, but I'm gonna try to translate it as close to a recipe as I can for you, and we'll certainly post what passes for recipe in the show notes. I'm starting with 2 pounds of meat. I have a pound of 90-10 ground sirloin and a pound of ground pork. To that, I'm gonna add I have some chopped garlic, and I'm gonna chop up a shallot because I like shallots. I once read that shallots are what onions want to be when they grow up. They have a bolder flavor, I think, than your average onion. So we'll chop that up.
Where'd that knife come from?
I was just going to say, I think that we need to give thanks and acknowledgement to Elizabeth Martin, Steve's daughter, for getting us this awesome knife that is so sharp and cuts everything so well. Thanks, Elizabeth. Then we're going to do half of a bell pepper. This is a sad bell pepper. It has seen better days, and I'm going to just use the bottom half of it, which is fine because I only wanted half of a bell pepper anyway. I would say this is an Italian style meatloaf. I've seen other recipes that call for beef, pork, and veal. I have made this with only beef, and it turns out great. But I think that I like it best when I use a mixture of equal parts of pork and beef. Great thing about meatloaf is if you have bits of, half pounds of this and that you froze in your freezer and you want to use them up, meatloaf's a great way to do it. And the categories. All right, that is about, I'm gonna say that's about half a cup of chopped bell pepper into the big bowl. This is some minced garlic. I already minced it, gonna throw that right in. Okay, 1 egg per pound of meat. Therefore, we're doing 2 eggs. 2 eggs, lightly mix them up before you throw them in the bowl. That's what makes the loaf sort of stay together. The other part that helps to bind it is bread. I'm gonna do 2 things. I'm gonna tear up this, you could do a slice of white bread or a slice of whatever. I just happen to have a leftover slider roll. So I'm literally just tearing up this roll and putting it in here. Soft bread, and then we're also gonna put in some bread crumbs. How much? I'm gonna start with half a cup. I think it's gonna take closer to a cup. This is going to help absorb the liquid that we're gonna add, as well as act as a binder with the eggs. Maybe the eggs are the binder, I'm not sure. Anyway, meatloaf gets such a bad rap. I don't know why. I love it. It heats up great the next day. It makes good sandwiches if you're into putting things between slices of bread. Yeah, okay, bread is torn up. That was a small, like a small slider roll. That's all it was. I'm gonna dump in, I'm gonna start with half a cup of breadcrumbs. These are panko breadcrumbs. You could use regular breadcrumbs. You could use seasoned or not seasoned. Doesn't matter. I can tell by looking. I'm actually gonna do 3/4 of a cup. And then we'll see. Okay, now we need some seasoning. We're gonna add, and this is me trying to measure things that I don't normally measure. Let's say a teaspoon of salt. It's probably not enough, but you can add more. This is ground black pepper. I'm shaking it in. I'm gonna say maybe half a teaspoon. Actually, a little bit less than half a teaspoon. This is Italian seasoning, dried Italian seasoning. I'm gonna add a big heaping teaspoon. I'm actually gonna add 1.5 teaspoons because I love this stuff. And then I'm gonna add just a little bit more oregano because to me, oregano even more than basil is what makes it taste Italian. I'm gonna add 1 teaspoon of oregano. Oh, I forgot the parsley. We're gonna do, this is dried parsley from my deck this past summer, which I grew and dried myself. We're gonna do 1 teaspoon of dried parsley. If I had fresh parsley right now, I would totally chop up maybe like a nice fistful and put it in. I love fresh herbs in this mixture. And then the last thing we're gonna add is, well, there's 2 things. I'm gonna add some tomato paste. Let's call it a 1/4 cup. It's gonna make it, give it a rich flavor. Let's see, let's try that. And then I'm adding jarred marinara, just marinara spaghetti sauce. This doesn't have any, it probably just has garlic and basil in it. I think that's really all. Tomatoes, onion, water, garlic, olive oil, basil, sea salt, pepper, and oregano. It's just a jarred sauce. If you make your own, you could add that. If you have a leftover half can of like pizza sauce, use that. It doesn't matter, just use some tomato sauce. Instead of, usually you'll see milk in this place in the recipe. I'm gonna add half a cup and start there since we already have about 1/4 cup of tomato paste. And we're gonna put the rest on top. Now we mix. First we take a sip of wine. Okay. I'm gonna start with a spoon, but I need to warn you ahead of time. Trigger warning, trigger alert. If you're grossed out by people putting their hands on ground meat, look away. If you have small children who you don't want to see this, maybe you should divert them or maybe just pause and come back later. But I'm about to touch raw meat with my hands, all right? Just so you know. So, start mixing it with a spoon and I'm gonna get in there with my hands. You could also put on, rubber gloves to do this, like disposable food gloves. I don't have any of those. All right, this is good. Perfect. I promise I washed my hands. I have a little brush I got under my fingernails. You can rest assured that we practice only the top level of food handling safety here in the More Must Be Better kitchen. And you put it in the middle of the pan and you make sure that it's, holding its shape. This one looks great. It's holding its shape perfect. The oven's preheated. Last step before we put it in the oven. You take that jar of marinara that you had out and you just pour a bunch over the top. Like that. Make sure it's pretty much covered end to end. And that's it. We're gonna put it in the oven. It's at 350 degrees. It's gonna take about an hour to bake. We'll stick a thermometer in it to make sure that, since there's pork and beef in there, that it's come up to temperature, but it usually takes about an hour. So we'll see you on the flip side. I did want to tell you that I have, you know, these cookbooks that I love, the church cookbooks. In the first one that my grandma and my aunt's home church did, the Faith Lutheran cookbook, my two aunts, my mom's two sisters, who were, I think, in charge in large part of compiling this cookbook, included a recipe that I wrote, which is hilarious. And it just has, it says, it's attributed to me. This cookbook was written in the 70s. I was all of 10 years old at this point, but apparently I added cornflakes as the binder, and a little bit of tomato sauce, but I guess the point is, I've been making meatloaf since I was 10 years old. All right, our thermometer says it's time to take it out. It's been an hour and 10 minutes. I baked it at 350 for an hour, and then I turned the temperature up to 375, and that took about 10 minutes to bring it up to close to 150. Here it is. We're gonna let it sit for about 5 minutes before we cut it. It's held together pretty well. It doesn't hold together like a super tight loaf, but that's okay because I prefer it to be, you know, less tight. You can really taste between the Italian seasoning. Between the Italian seasoning and the tomato sauce, it just tastes Italian. It goes great with potatoes, your choice. It goes great with, I've got some asparagus in the oven that we're gonna pull out. Guys, you should make meatloaf. Meatloaf is much maligned. Meatloaf is much maligned, and I don't know why. If you make it right, it's tasty. It's not dry, it's not caked together, it's delicious. So you should try it. Thank you for watching. Please. Thank you for watching. Please, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel. Please tell a friend about the channel. And we have occasional conversations over on Facebook in our group called More Must Be Better. I hope you'll join us there. Thank you again for watching. And until next time.